Welcome to a very special Five Things. It is a two-part season finale. The last part we had was the Scene Snobs takeover, and on this episode, it is the Scary Mysteries takeover. So, with me is my special co-host, my partner in crime from the Popcorn Confessional and Popcorn Theory, and our Easter egg videos, and our streaming news videos, and our news videos, and our upcoming Pop 5 episodes that will be debuting, and that is Jennifer.
Hi.
All right, so now before we jump into this episode of Five Things, which is five true stories that inspired horror films, this is going to be a fun one. Just remember, it is the quest for 5,000 subscribers. And what does that mean? It means that with your support, you can help us get to 5,000 subscribers. And what we'll be giving away is the box of Strawberries and Scream that is only available in the UK. And we have a one of a kind edition, which is signed by Matthew Lillard and David Arquette. And by the time we reach 5,000 subscribers, there may be a couple more names on it. But there also are rewards along the way. So every video that gets 100 likes and 100 comments, you get to choose from movie theater swag that was only released at Regal or the Cinemark. And that is posters and coloring books and pins. Oh my. So you definitely want to take a part of that and help us get there, because it allows us to focus on independent artists and filmmakers on Five Things and on Donna Jean's Coffee House of Horror. But in just a moment, we'll introduce our very special guest. So, see you in a second.
I am inevitable.
Okay, with us today is the host of Scary Mysteries on YouTube. He's also the host of Every Town, which is a podcast that, Jen, you listen to, right?
I do. I'm very particular on my podcast because some of them, pretty much everyone makes a podcast now. And like some of the TV shows out there even do like a podcast version of their show, but it's not always possible. Like Catfish has a podcast. How does that work? I try listening to it, but then like Neve and Max are like describing the people's clothes and their house and stuff so that you can picture it. It doesn't work that way. Every town works because you're just telling a story, right? So you don't need to see a picture.
Honestly, I tell you this, if anybody's been in withdrawal from the Robert Stack Unsolved Mysteries, this is definitely the show that you want to go to. So joining us is the writer and director of An Angry Boy.
Hello. How's it going?
Welcome, welcome. Thank you for joining us for this show. I'm kind of excited for it because this is a really cool topic, and there's a lot of interesting stories that we're going to talk about. So now, before we jump into this, Andrew, what do you want to plug? Go ahead, plug away.
Oh, you guys were promoting Everytown very well. Yeah, go check out my podcast, Everytown. Go check out our Scary Mysteries YouTube channel, please. And we are currently getting some final funding for our feature film called An Angry Boy, which is a revenge thriller. So go check out our YouTube channel. You'll find links. It's on Kickstarter, and you can come watch the online premiere, get your name in the credits, all sorts of great stuff. So yeah, it'd be much appreciated.
So for collectors, I love the idea of having the signed script and then the opportunity to have the full-size poster. But then you're doing a premiere, right? You're doing an exclusive online premiere just with contributors?
Yeah, it's only available through Kickstarter. We're going to, once the movie's done, we're going to do an online premiere with everybody that supported us through Kickstarter. Then we'll do a nice, festival run for several months, see how that shakes out, and then do distribution after that. So it'll be, unless you go to the festivals, it'll be a great chance. And it'll be fun because I'll be hosting it. We'll do a Q&A afterwards. I'll be nervous as all hell, like as I'm sitting there premiering my movie, so you can see me just terrified, and yeah, it should be good.
All right. So how this five things works is, if this is the first time that you're tuning in for it, we go round robin style. We go from 5 all the way up to 1. We start with our guest, then we go to our guest host, and then I'll round out that round. So Andrew, what do you have at number 5?
Coming in at number 5, we have a movie from 2008 called The Girl Next Door.
One sound down here, and I'll kill the both of you.
Oh,
Anybody?
I heard of it. I've seen the trailers for it.
Yeah.
It looks a little disturbing.
Yes, it's almost not a horror movie in the sense that it's based off of Sylvia Likens, and it's basically a girl who was severely abused by specifically her mother, ultimately malnourished, and then died, and her mom went to jail for it. But the true story is, yeah, it's horrific and sad. And that was kind of the mixed feeling on this film. I think people either, they praised it for, kind of being graphic, but others hated it because it was just too in your face, too much stuff. So, but yeah.
I think that's kind of why we've kind of avoided it. I know that's why I haven't pushed to watch it. I heard it's an amazing film, and I don't know if I want to just kind of watch that. It's probably because I have daughters, and it probably just put me in the wrong headspace after that movie.
Yeah, we have not watched that movie, but I did watch the true story of Sylvia Likens, so I do know what happened. The town that dreaded sundown.
Oh, yes.
That's a good one.
Yep.
Yeah. The Phantom Killer or Phantom Slayer was responsible for the so-called Texarkana Moonlight murders. He attacked 8 people, claimed the lives of 5 over 2.5 months in 1946, and he was never caught.
Yeah. I've seen a lot of his influence in other movies too, other than just that one. That's a good pick.
Yeah, I think that killer, he wore a pillowcase, or at least in the movie, but I think he really did.
Mm-hmm.
Also, I covered that on Scary Mysteries, and I say Texarkana, which that's wrong, right? It's Arkansas or something?
Texarkana. Yeah, Texarkana.
Texarkana, yeah. And I'm just like, Texarkana. And I got roasted in the comments. People were like, you're an idiot. And I was like, yeah, well,
For my list, I left off the one heavy hitter, but I'm going a little supernatural, and that movie is Veronica. Unfortunately, the film does not live up to the story, and we featured this on Nerdbox Paranormal. So now Veronica is based on the story of the Gutierrez family, and in 1990 in Madrid, essentially Estefania, she was a teenage girl, and the patriarch of the family was just a really nasty old man, her grandfather. And he was on his deathbed, and they went to see him, and he actually said to them, or to Estefania, that it's like, if I cannot ruin your life here, I'll do it in the next life. After he passed away, it caused a lot of weird hauntings in our house that were really centered around Estefania. And it started to mess with her mental health, causing her to have seizures. And eventually, they took her to the hospital on a few occasions, but she passed away because she had slipped in a coma from one of the seizures. And where you think the story ends there, it doesn't. It actually gets worse when it comes to the paranormal in their home, because the hauntings had elevated. People were getting scratched. There was a cross that was bolted on the wall that ripped off the wall and broke in the center of the floor. And then one evening, her picture that they had caught on fire. Now, this is the only story where the police were called in to investigate, and the police came out and they went into the home and they witnessed the things too. So it is one of the only recorded cases by a police department of a haunting.
I think the movie was too quick. I don't think it was long enough. and they just tried to. There was so much that happened to this girl, and they just tried to shove so much into less than 2 hours, and it just wasn't possible.
I haven't seen the movie, but is it in the vibe of like, is it sensationalized and like kind of like the possession and stuff like that, or did they kind of go more real?
I
Like, did
don't
they try to
think
make it a haunted movie with a lot of jump scares and stuff?
Yeah, that's it. Yep.
Mhm. Yeah.
And that's where I kind of missed that, right? They try to add in the jump scares of the creepy old nuns and stuff like that to kind of just make it have that creepy vibe, but it just never, it fell flat.
My number 4 is, and this isn't really this isn't because of the movie, this is because of the true story behind it. Haunting in Connecticut.
Oh, all right.
Neither of you have that one?
So actually, I forgot to put that one on my list because I love that movie.
Yeah, it's not a bad movie. And yeah,
And I love the story. I mean,
Yeah.
I first saw the story on Unsolved Mysteries.
Yeah, it's got Ed and Lorraine Warren, who are all over there. It was based on Al and Carmen Snedeker, and their young boy was sick with cancer, so they moved to a house up there to be closer to the hospital. And yeah, all this crazy stuff started happening, seeing, figures and all sorts of stuff. And I've covered a lot of haunted houses stories, and they're all it's very interesting because there's so many of them, kind of like UFOs, in the sense that maybe some stuff is exaggerated, but there's no way that people are just like, these random families just make up all this stuff, especially because a lot of people don't try to cash in on them. Like, there's plenty of stories where people tell their story, it gets blown up in the news, and then they retreat like for the rest of their lives.
Wolf Creek.
Oh, all right.
Yo, I didn't even think of that one. That's a good one. That's a good one.
So I have always wanted to go to Australia till I found out about the huge bugs and the serial killers. So, because this isn't even there were actually several stories that kind of played into the inspiration for Wolf Creek, but the biggest one is that in 1996, Ivan Milat was convicted of murdering 7 backpackers between 1989 and 1993. But there were several other serial killers in Australia that also inspired this movie. So I don't want to go to Australia anymore.
It's a good call. It's a long trip,
It is a long trip, especially to just go there and get slaughtered, right? So I think I'm good.
Yeah, it's that film and like The Hills Have Eyes, like, oh, long desert. No, don't drive down a long desert because I'm gonna get a flat tire and somebody's gonna try to kill me.
Yeah.
And when you watch movies like that, I'm always thinking about how thirsty everyone must be. I'm just like, God, your
Right?
Mad Maxes. I'm just like, everyone must be so thirsty.
Never know where I might pop up.
What do you actually do?
I can tell you, but then I'd have to kill you.
I'm staying in the paranormal realm. Number 4, I know Jen's not going to like, and it is The Exorcist. It's something that we covered on Nerdbox Paranormal. It is based on the story of Roland Doe, who we actually reveal in our episode is Ronald Hunkeler. The true story behind it is a little bit scarier than what we've seen in the movie. A lot of the things that were in the movie were definitely inspired by it. But here you have this little boy that was kind of groomed into playing the Ouija board from his aunt. And when his aunt passed away, that's when the haunting started. Only unlike Estefania, he was actually, his demeanor was changing. He would be possessed and he would go into those states. Again, people were getting scratched. There was weird smells. And the family even tried to bring it to a priest in the state that they were living in at the time. And that priest's like, oh, it's fake. I'm going to take him to my home and we'll see what happens. And when they took Roland Doe to his home, all the paranormal stuff started happening where the priest was at because he brought the boy with him. So they end up eventually moving out of state, and that's where the exorcism happened in a local hospital. And when that was done and he was free and clear of it, they actually sealed off the hospital room where the exorcist was done in because they didn't want anybody to go in there. And then they eventually shut down the wing. They actually demolished the wing. So they got rid of all the evidence that was surrounding that case. And Roland Doe, has gone on to live a normal life.
I didn't know that. Plus, I mean, that movie is just still holds up, basically. I haven't watched it in years, but it still holds up. This is a movie I don't think either of you have seen. It's called Borderland.
I've heard of it.
Yeah.
So it's a horror movie. You know, it's kind of a slasher film. I think it came out in 2007. So it was kind of around the time it wanted to be Hostel. So it was like these kids go to Mexico and sort of a cult leader finds them. They get picked off one by one super violently. So not a great movie, but it's a mediocre movie. I'm sorry. But the story behind it is way cooler. Adolfo de Jesus Constanzo. So he was like a Cuban immigrant, I think, and he, was into cocaine, had a terrible upbringing, parents into prostitution and stuff. Ended up moving to Mexico. He was always dabbling in the occult and voodoo and stuff. And so he sort of started a cult in Mexico. And the story that I know about is there was a couple of Americans that went down there and they kidnapped one of them and held him in like a shed and told him everything was going to be fine. And they ended up beheading him, cooking him, eating him. When police came and finally raided the place, they found 15 other portions of other people's bodies and all sorts of potions. And they were doing some weird stuff in the outskirts of Mexico. So similar to Wolf Creek, just like out there in the middle of nowhere in the Terror Dome. So yeah, that's what I got for 3.
That actually came up in the 5 things in a previous episode by one of our guests. They were talking about Borderland. So it's not the first time I heard it. We'll probably have to check it out. But your comparison is tied to my number 3.
My number 3 is The Strangers. And not necessarily because I thought it was a fantastic movie. Just the whole idea of it is really creepy and probably one of my worst nightmares come true is, you're like home alone or not home alone. I don't know. And, because it's like a home invasion type thing. But these people are just coming there and they just came in because you answered the door and they're taunting you and, torturing you. The director said that when he wrote it, he was thinking of 2 real life events, the infamous Manson family murders and then the Ketty cabin murders, which I was watching that recently, Dave, and you were a little disturbed by the fact that I knew all their names.
Yeah, that's a wild story, that one for sure.
Yeah.
Look, I'm a little disappointed, right? Your choice is The Strangers and not the original film, which is Them, right? You're talking like saying, hey, I like that movie, The Hunger Games, and saying, I like The Hunger Games. Meanwhile, we have Battle Royale that came first. It was on the topic first. So Them is something that I would say would be the choice. But that's your choice. You can go with Strangers.
I was just going to say, this is my choice. So, shh.
All right, so my number 3, Andrew kind of touched on it a little bit, and it doesn't really make many lists on true events that inspired horror movies, but it is Hostel. Eli Roth originally wouldn't say, hey, this is what inspired me, but I did some digging and I was afraid to go any further. And recently he had mentioned that he had come across a website based out of Thailand, right, Jenn? Thailand's best. That was essentially a murder hotel. And if you paid them $10,000, you would be flown over there, and then you would be led to a room where you can execute somebody. So that inspired him to write the film. I said he didn't know if it was a scam website or anything, but that's what brought him to the film. Now, Jen and I have a friend that I used to work with who went over to Russia for a period of time, and he was doing interviews for his college. And he had come across rumors about something similar to Hostel before the movie ever came out. And there was one situation where he was in a bar interviewing somebody, and this little boy ran in. He was crying. I believe he mentioned that he was naked. And the guy that he was interviewing said, "Stay. Don't get involved, because that's just a trap to lure somebody outside. And then they kidnap that person and they bring them off to be tortured somewhere and eventually killed." So there are stories that are out there that are like this. So hostilism get brought up many times. So that's my number 3.
That's crazy. I want to like look into that. I've never heard that that could possibly be like real. And if that stuff's real, like we got to talk about it, man. That's crazy. Fire in the Sky.
Oh, all right. Good one.
Now, I don't know if you can really put that in the horror category, but for me, when I watched it, I was whatever. I don't know what I was, young teen or something. It freaked me out. Like when he, the plastic over him, and it's like they cut it open and they drag him, and he wakes up in that goop. So for me, it was a very terrifying film. And obviously that's based off the super famous Travis Walton case, which is very interesting in and of itself.
That's a good one. I have not watched it since I was a kid too, and I remember it scaring the hell out of me. I wonder if it holds up. I haven't revisited it since then for good reason, but I wonder if it holds up. It's not talked about much anymore. It should be.
Yeah, I don't know if I want to revisit it, because I just have in my mind, it's one of the few movies that like I got like that real, because I knew it was based on a real thing. So watching it at like the right time, I was just like, this happened? Oh, I was just freaking out. So, it was well done. It was well done. Remember, like it hits them and it like lifts them and drops and then like sucks them up, and they're like, "Get out of here, dude."
My number 2 is Happy Face Killer. Inspired by the real life events of the hunt and capture of Keith Jesperson. And David Arquette actually played Keith Jesperson. And I'm always intrigued by some of these serial killers because they seem so normal. They seem so guy next door. I mean, this guy was married and he had kids and he was an over-the-road truck driver.
David Arquette's a truck driver? He was the killer. Yes.
The film typically gets tied to this gentleman named Brian Douglas, who had this bomb strapped to his neck and was told to go rob a bank or it would explode. It is Saw.
Hello. You don't know me, but I know you. I want to play a game.
James Wan, when he was 17, everybody hold your laughter, there was a serial tickler. Essentially, a person was breaking into people's homes and tickling kids and then leaving. And that terrified James Wan. And when the serial tickler was captured, the person was interrogated and admitted that he received a jigsaw piece telling him to go and do this or bad things would happen to him. Now, we fast forward many years ahead, Saw comes out, and James Wan and his partner in crime who wrote the film receive a jigsaw piece from a person thanking them for putting his character on screen and for choosing the Tobin Bell to play his part. He says, His hair would be black though, and maybe you should pay me. And then he laughed it off, and then that's how he ended his letter. Yep.
Okay.
This was a movie that I really liked a lot, and I feel like it got it didn't get its due. It was Deliver Us from Evil.
Oh yeah.
Remember this one? It's about
Yeah.
it's like the New York cops, Eric Bana and Joel McHale was in that. But it's the true story of Ralph Sarchi. They were exploring some murders, and then it just turned out that, you know, there was like all this black magic stuff involved and paranormal stuff going on. And I don't know what it was about it. I just, you know, you talked about Veronica, where it's like sort of sensationalized. I know Deliver Us from Evil was, but there was something that was like grounded about it that like made it feel cool to me.
If I remember correctly, that movie was just not like darker in tone, but it was just overall a darker picture. A lot of shadow work and a lot of darker images that were on screen.
Yeah, I just liked. I liked how it was filmed. I liked the vibe that it gave, and I more wanted to bring it up in case the audience doesn't know about it, because it's just like a very forgotten movie that's worth checking out.
My number one is from 2018, The Clove Hitch Killer.
Yes. Good film. Good film.
The Clove Hitch Killer spins one creepy story of a suburban dad with a chilling secret. It follows the Burnsides, a seemingly ordinary Kentucky family living in a small town, plagued by the unsolved case of the Clove Hitch Killer, a murderer who took the lives of 13 women a decade prior, and it is inspired by the BTK killer.
Oh, really? I thought it was like I thought he was like his own guy, but I could totally be wrong. I just thought that from watching a movie. But yeah, no, that makes sense. It was based off of BTK. That was a good movie, right? That was like kind of a slow burner.
We talked about it on our show. It's just a movie that made you feel really dirty afterwards. He was beyond creepy in that film.
Yeah, they made him, you know, just like this normal dad, and you were seeing it through the eyes of the kid, and like they just made it was just very well done.
Yeah. Dylan McDermott knocked it out of the park. This story inspired 3 separate movies: a comedy, a drama, and a horror. The horror film is probably one of the best video game adaptation movies that has come out, and it is Silent Hill.
Look at me. I'm burning.
And this is based on Centralia, PA, which is not too far from us in Columbia County. And the backstory on this leads into a few different stories. So as many may know, there was an underground coal mine fire that's been occurring since 1962, which has caused all the people, except for 4, to leave that town. But if we go further back in the town's history, in the 1860s, when they were having the coal mine rush and people were going there to clean up things, this ties into the Molly Maguires, because they were a unionized group that came along and they were causing a bunch of problems from the town. People were getting murdered, people were getting robbed. So we eventually got the Molly Maguires movie based off of that, which has Sean Connery in it. But the founder of Centralia, he was actually murdered in the 1860s in his buggy. And the Molly Maguires caused so much problems back then. The priest that lived there, he actually cursed the entire town, saying that the only thing that'll stand here one day is the church. Everything else will be gone. So then we fast forward almost 100 years, and there was this coal mine disaster that occurred that it killed 111 coal miners out of 142 people that were there. And that's never ever talked about. It's always overlooked for the inspirations behind Silent Hill and the coal mine fires burning underground. And then the comedy that was inspired from this was Nothing But Trouble with Dan Aykroyd and Chevy Chase. And that was based on Centralia as well. But Silent Hill is my number one.
Dude, that was a great one. Wow, look at that. Nothing But Trouble. Remember that one? That was
Yeah.
a wild film.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, Dan Aykroyd had like whatever, like a dick nose or something. What is it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was our fives. Do you agree with our list? Do you disagree with the list? What's on your list? Let us know by dropping that in the comments. And don't forget, remember, it is the quest for 5,000 subscribers. So every like and subscribe helps us get to that goal, which we're hoping to hit by the end of year 2 for our channel. So we appreciate your support. And that support allows us to bring on independent filmmakers and artists and comic book artists and stuntmen, either on Five Things or on Down in Gene's Coffee House of Horror, so we can spotlight what they're doing. And you get to sometimes get to hear about films like An Angry Boy or Bloody Summer Camp or Scream Test that you may have not checked out before if you didn't hear about it here. So before we go, Andrew, anything you want to plug in closing?
No, just thank you guys so much. Check out Scary Mysteries YouTube if you're into it. And yeah, that's it.
All right. And then on to our honorable mentions that you'll see later in the week. See ya.